night, something strange is going on.
You see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Sure.
They ship those bodies here. Well, say hello.
The dead have risen from the grave.
Mister, there's 100 of those things out there.
How many did you say?
100?
And now the question is, how do we get them back into the ground?
Bert, Frank, we have a little problem.
4 left. 10 right.
That goddamn chemicals! It's all over everything!
Stupid asshole!
Watch your tongue, boy, if you like this job!
Like this job! Brain!
Medical science is baffled.
And it's a puzzle, because technically, you're not alive.
Why do you eat people?
Not people. Brains.
How do you kill something that's already dead?
Well, how do I know, Fred? I don't know. Let me think.
It's not a bad question, Bert.
In that movie, they destroyed the brain to kill him. Is that what they did?
The brains, right? Brains!
Brain! The brain! I hit the brain! Oh! Get it off! 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 Get it off!
The military is nervous.
Usual crap.
The police are confused.
Send more cops.
It worked in the movie! Well, it ain't working now. Brain the movie line?
It's not a bad question, Bert. It's not a bad question, Bert. It's not a bad question, Bert.
The return of the living dead.
Okay, so movie friends, we're going to be talking about a movie, obviously, as a movie review, exclusive movie review. We're going to be talking about The Return of the Living Dead, and this light might be a little bit too bright, so let me go ahead and turn that down just a smidgen. Okay, we're going to be talking about The Return of the Living Dead. Now, obviously, one of my favorite films of all time, bar none. Love this. Favorite zombie film. Zombies say brains. How could you not get sucked into that? I mean, seriously, like, isn't that like one of those typical, like, cliches that people think zombies have? Like, they go after the brains and stuff. Well, this movie actually does it. They actually go after brains, and it's because, you know, the zombies in this film, when they are dead, they feel the pain of being dead. They decompose. They feel their bodies rotting away, and the brain is like the only part of the human body of the living. Let's be specific. The living human body that really kind of takes away that pain and makes them feel like, you know, like it just takes away the pain so they don't have to feel like they're dying, you know. But and it's actually a really interesting and kind of cool reason why the zombie does what it does. It goes after the brain to kind of kill away, or no pun intended, kill away that, or decompose, or get rid of the feeling of just overall rotting to death, which I can only imagine what that would feel like. The building that they work at, obviously, is a place that they kind of prepare bodies for, like, classes. They ship stuff out, weird things that have to deal with just human bodies, anatomy, and all that stuff. And, well, basically, they have a corpse inside the building, and the government, by accident, did a tip... Well, Frank, takes Freddy down to the basement where they apparently, or what I was saying was apparently, Frank to him, typical government military fuck up. They sent the fucking things here, right? And they put them in the basement. So down in the basement, they supposedly had some of the bodies, the reminiscent bodies of the aftermath of Night of the Living Dead in the basement of this warehouse. And what they do is to show off, because he's a superior employee, right? He's been there longer. Sometimes I can't even think of the words off the top of my head when I'm talking about movies, but he's a veteran employee there, and he shows him off kind of to show off, yeah, I know more than you do, and we actually got the bodies down in the basement. So he takes him down, takes poor little Fred down to the basement, gets them all amped up and everything. We're getting ready to see some cool shit, weird shit, because what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen come through here? And they go to the basement, and he's like, what does he say? This is made from the U.S. finest engineering around, and he smacks it, and all of a sudden it leaks, and the air leaks into it, and the body starts decomposing into the air, and they breathe it in, they get knocked out because of it. The gas is just too strong, so they get knocked out, and the gas just goes all over the building, all over the warehouse and everything. So what do they have to do when they get up? They call their boss, Bert. They call Bert to come in. Bert, we got a problem. And Bert comes in, and now they have to deal with all of their dead, stuffed bodies all over the building coming back to life as reanimations and moving around, including the body that was hanging in the freezer room is now alive and running and screaming and freaking out and stuff. He wants brains. So now they have to try to get rid of that thing, and, they open up the door. One of my favorite parts. They open up the door. Bert's like, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. Freddy, just stand behind the door. He's, Frank, take this. Oh, I don't think I can do this. And he has to, he has to be the one to actually swing it because, it's his fault that everything kind of went down anyway, so it makes sense that Frank is the one who has to take down this first off reanimated body. So they open the door, and the body runs out. Frank doesn't do shit. It runs right by him and goes right after Bert, who was standing behind everybody, to keep that safe distance. And it tackles Bert down. Bert is the biggest man in the movie, by the way. He's the one who gets shit done. And they tackle the body to the ground after he knocks down a few shelves and everything. They tackle him to the ground. They hold him down. Bert grabs the pickaxe and swings it right into his head, thinking that hitting the head was going to kill it, because Night of the Living Dead, you go for the head, you kill the reanimation, right? So, and that doesn't work, by the way. That just does not work. So, they take it next door to the morgue. The reanimation morgue, what is it? What do they call the morgue in Return of the Living Dead? Oh, my bad, my apologies. It's the Resurrection Cemetery, right? So the Resurrection morgue, So they go to this place, and now they're trying to convince Ernie, who's in charge of the morgue, that they need their help. And he's thinking it's, they try to convince him it's rabid weasels. Rabid weasels. And he goes and says, you want to burn weasels? That's cruel. So we need to take them out to the parking lot, and I can shoot them. We'll just put them down, put them out of their misery. That's better than burning live animals. It's less messy that way. So he has to now explain. Bert now has to explain to his buddy Ernie that that's just not going to happen. And he's like, oh, what are you talking about? Why can't we just shoot them and put it down? Put it, these animals out of their misery. And they go ahead and they open the bags up, making him promise that he won't say nothing because, it could look bad for their business. So they open up the bags, and what is inside of them? Cut up body parts from the frozen reanimated body that they had to take, to take down at their warehouse. So they bring it in bags, the arms in a bag, the legs in a bag, the head's in a bag. Well, they open up the one with the arm in it, and the arm grabs Ernie and rips off the leg of his pants, and scares him to death. And now they have to sit down and kind of tell him the story of what just happened. Our dumbass employee, Frank, showed the newbie something that he shouldn't have showed him, fucked up, made the thing leak, gas caused everything to come to life, so now we have to get rid of everything. Because now everything is coming back to life, and that is just going to look bad for the business, and then we're going to have the government come in, and the government's going to get involved in everything. We just can't have that. So that being said, now we go over to Freddy's friends, who are kind of on the side. They Spider, a bunch of other characters, Suicide, Suicide, man. Bless Suicide. Suicide's one of my favorite characters, actually. Yeah. Well, Tina, Freddy's girlfriend, hoping that her boyfriend gets the job, goes over and checks on him at the warehouse, not knowing that Freddy, Frank, and Bert are over at the mortuary. The mortuary, that's what it's called, not the morgue, the mortuary. I think it's the mortuary. And they're over at the morgue, mortuary, whatever you want to call it, and they're not at the warehouse anymore because, they have to try to dispose of the evidence. So Tina goes in to the warehouse, goes down to the basement because she thinks she hears something, thinks it's Freddy and them hanging around in the basement, and little did she know that the reanimated corpse that was inside of the container actually came out, and it's actually my personal favorite zombie in any horror movie, anywhere, and that is Tarman. The Tarman comes out, really cool looking, disgusting, sickening looking, slimy, disgusting little individual named Tarman starts yelling, "Brains!" and starts walking over towards Tina, trying to get to her, and Tina runs up the stairs, not even thinking twice. She runs up the stairs, step comes through, and that step was talked about earlier about how it wasn't that well built, and you need to watch that step, but no one decides, we need to take the minute to fix that. So she goes through the floor before Tarman could get her, hides in one of the lockers underneath the stairs, and is locking herself in before Tarman could, eat her brains, right? So her friends, Suicide, all of these trash, Scuzz, and Spider all are outside, and they hear Tina screaming, so they run into the building, run down to the basement. Tina is in the locker screaming for her life, while the Tarman is very smartly tying a chain around the handles of the locker and pulling it with a crank or something and just ripping that door off slowly. So they all run to the basement to save Tina because they have no idea what's going on. They rip off a Suicide, who is one of my favorite characters of all time. I can quote that guy all day. And fuck you, ball buster. Rips the bag down, sees the Tarman. Tarman says, "Brains," grabs Suicide, bites his head, rips out a chunk, blood's coming all over the place. Suicide gives off one of the craziest little last-minute screams ever. Suicide dies. Everybody runs out. Spider, who is also a pretty damn badass character, runs up. They all run upstairs, shuts the door, and that's basically what happened to Suicide. And Tarman is now in the basement eating Suicide's brain. So everybody else made it out, though. Now we go back to the morgue, the mortuary, where Freddy and Frank are now feeling sick. They're feeling sick. I mean, they breathed this shit in. This is, decomposing corpse for who knows how long is now into their system. It's not good. This is the stuff from a reanimated body that came back to life, and they're feeling it. They're feeling sick and ill. And, well, basically what happens is they succeeded. They burned the bodies. They got all of those pieces of that frozen guy into the yellow-skinned guy that they take down earlier. They put him inside the incinerator, and they burn his body, and now it's all going up into the air. And what happens then? It rains, and all of that decomposing, disgusting, chemical, whatever you want to say, the horrible shit that became after the corpse was being burned is now washed into the cemetery. And now all that shit is leaking into the bodies, into the cemetery, and now every body in the cemetery is now reanimated and starts coming out of the ground. Badass. The movie gets insane at this point. Now you got you probably got over 100,000 people coming out of the ground yelling brains. And now they are luring cops in, they're luring ambulances in, they're, all these paramedics in, and eating all of them every time they come in to try to save everybody who was locked inside the morgue, the mortuary, which is Frank, Ernie, and, even, I should have mentioned too that Tina and all of them ran towards there and are now in there as well. Trash though, unfortunately trash. She is left outside to get eaten by a giant horde of old men ripping her apart and eating her alive, which is one of her, I think, death fantasies anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. And she becomes a creepy zombie, by the way, ugh, that is gnarly. There's a scene where she's walking towards a homeless man, and her mouth just opens it's crazy, almost like Venom. Her mouth just goes nuts right there and takes a giant fucking bite right out of his head. Well, anyways, now we have to. We're the group. We got. I think we got Scuzz. We got Spider, Tina, Frank, Freddy, and Bert all inside the mortuary, now trying to have to defend it. And two other of their friends are actually back at the warehouse because they got separated because of them trying to make it back towards the mortuary. The morgue and the zombies came out of the ground, and they kind of had to split off. So two of their friends are over at the warehouse still, while the other ones are actually at the morgue with Bert and all of them. So what happens now is that they need to make an escape plan because we can't stay here, okay? We got all these people out here trying to kill us, and at some point they're going to break in because the windows, they're not going to hold up. They're not going to hold up in the chapel. They're not going to hold up in the morgue. We got to do something. This little gun's not going to do shit because you can shoot them all you want, and nothing's going to happen, which is probably the scariest thing about these zombies, is that no matter what you do to them, unless you burn them, chop them up to a million pieces, and burn them alive, you can't kill these things. You know, you can't take off their heads and kill them. You can't do nothing like that. This is not the same type of typical zombie that you would have faced in, like, you know, Call of Duty Black Ops. These aren't the same zombies in, like, Night of the Living Dead. These aren't the same zombies in Dawn of the Dead. These are the scariest fucking zombies of all time because you just can't take them down. So they can't stay there. So, you know, Ernie actually makes the idea that we could climb up into the crawl space above them and, you know, pick up the ladder and just hide up there until the zombies or whatever happens, and they leave us alone. And they stay up there till morning when help comes. And they don't like that idea. Well, at least Spider and Bert don't like that idea. They would rather go out and try to get help. So what they do is they have to try to go outside, get one of the police cars, bring it back to the building, pick up everybody, and drive away. But that doesn't happen because both Bert and Spider go out, get a car, come back, but they realize there's too many of them to try to get inside this building. So the zombies are like piling on top of the car. There's just no way. And, you know, Tina's like, they left us. And they kind of had to. And I also should have mentioned that both both Frank and Freddy, the two Fs of the movie, are now inside the chapel because they really started getting sick. They are literally becoming the living dead. And their insides, you know, are starting to decompose. I mean, Freddy started showing, well, both Frank and Freddy, I'm assuming, started showing huge signs of rigor mortis. So there was just, they were dying, right? So that's that. And they're kind of locked in the chapel, though. And at this point, Frank makes one of the ultimate sacrifices, knowing he's going to die. And before he becomes one of those things outside that are just craving for brains, he wants to kill himself. So he takes his ring off, goes to the incinerator, crawls into that fucking thing, and lights himself on fire and burns alive. And he went out like a man right there. You know, he was a big character throughout the movie, but that was one of the biggest sacrifices I think he ever made. And I think he did good right there. He did really good. So that was a good ending for Frank. Freddy, though, becomes a full-on living corpse, and he starts charging after Tina, even trying to sucker her in, making her feel guilty and shit. You know, oh, you made me hurt myself, Tina, but I still love you. One way you can pay me back is if you let me eat your brains. And they go, and he's trying to chase him and everything, but he can't really chase him because he's kind of blind. They had to throw acid in his face because he almost really bit somebody. So now he's blind, his eyes are all red, he can't see shit. He's just running around hitting walls and stuff, just yelling out Tina's name and stuff. Pretty creepy shit, actually. And so, but Bert and Tina decide to crawl up into the crawl space because Bert, he broke his ankle, so he can't make it out. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Moving one of the chapel seats, he actually broke his ankle trying to do it. So, yeah, he's out of commission. He can't really run. Well, anyways, back to Ernie. I keep saying Bert, but it's actually Ernie and Tina who crawled up into the crawl space. Ernie broke his ankle. My apologies. If I said Bert, my apologies. Sometimes I get them mixed up. I think of Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street, but it's actually Ernie and Tina who were left behind. Bert and Spider went into the police car and drove off because they really can't go back and get them at this point. There's too many of these zombies. So they go and they drive to the warehouse because too many zombies are now, like, they're in the city now. This virus has spread into the city, so they kind of cut them off as they're trying to get away, and they kind of drove into the side of the warehouse that he works at, and they kind of had to go in there because there's nowhere else for them to go, especially with a car that's like done. So they go into the warehouse and they lock themselves in, knowing they're going to have to go to the basement to get to the phone to call for help. So they go to the basement to call for help, and before they could do that, though, they realize that there is Tarman still down in that basement. So they open up the door, Tarman comes up, Tarman comes out, Bert knocks his block off, takes his head clean off, pretty good too, and goes down to the basement, gets the phone, and their only option after calling the police, because the police are now done. The police on the line are literally being attacked by these zombies, including trash, and just the whole town is just killing all the police. They're getting out of the perimeter of the town, so now they're starting to spread farther past the town. So shit's getting really serious now. So the only option is for Bert to call the number on the tank that was the government number. So they call it, and the government's there, and they're asking, why didn't you report this the second you guys had the tanks, or when it first breached? And they said, well, because I'm afraid it was going to ruin my business. And he's like, oh, understandable, but it's not going to matter anyways, because we're going to send a fucking nuke over there to kill you all. They literally send a nuke over there and blow up the entire town, knowing that there is no other way to get rid of these zombies, because you can't kill them, so we just got to nuke them. And, yeah, that's basically the movie. That's basically The Return of the Living Dead. Overall, a great movie, a fun, crazy movie, and I gotta say, it's one of my favorites. It is my favorite zombie film of all time. I still have to see a zombie film that to surpass this or come close. If I had to pick a movie that came close to Return of the Living Dead for me as a zombie film goes, it's probably going to be the original Dawn of the Dead. But even then, I mean, the energy of this movie is just off the charts insane. I love the visuals. I love the effects. I love the characters. I think the characters are very memorable. They're not, throwaway. Some of them are kind of throwaway, but yeah, the overall, Suicide. You got Suicide Trash. You got Freddy. You got Ernie, Bert, Frank. Freddy and Frank's chemistry back and forth is actually some of the funnest moments of the movie. I kind of like their back and forth a lot, actually. And, you got Tom Matthews in there, James Karen. I mean, there's just so many great performances in this movie overall. And I got to say, I've seen it at least probably over 30 times. So, I mean, if you're a big fan of this, I don't blame you. I love the movie. I love that the zombies save brains. I love that they have their reasons why they do what they do. I love the Tarman. Tarman is easily my favorite character in the entire movie because he's just so iconic. He talks, he's actually a character. Most of the time zombies are just, they don't talk. They just, kind of walk and look at you, and that's about it. So you can really tell some of these characters apart in this movie, especially between the zombies too. So overall, love this film. Love it to death. Guys, what are your thoughts on Return of the Living Dead? Do you love it as much? Maybe I'll do the part 2 if you guys want to see that. I'll talk about part 2 if you guys want. But until next time, movie friends, keep it retro, and I'll check you guys out in the next video. Take care.
Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be doing a reaction. Oh, God, I can't hear myself. Today, we're going to be doing a reaction to. Perfect. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that my mic was not flubbing up as usual. Scoot that. I'm sorry about that. I'm terrible at this. Crap. I really haven't done this in a while. Oh my gosh, my camera's terrible. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, I think we're better. Jordan's gonna, fillet me for this.